Another series win for the Cardinals as they beat up on the Washington Nationals this past weekend. And the Cardinals are rolling right now. We have a lot to discuss today. We're going to recap the Cardinals versus Nationals series. We arguably right now have the best lineup we have had all season long. Ryan Helsley is an all-star, our lone all-star as of right now. Tommy Edman on a rehab assignment starting in Double-A this past evening. And then we're also going to look at the Cardinals versus Royals, a little preview going to that series starting with it being a rainout starting on Wednesday and ending on Wednesday with a doubleheader. But before we get started, I want to make sure you guys know we are on Instagram and on TikTok. You please go follow us over there. We are almost at 1,000 already on Instagram. We are over 1,000 on TikTok, and it's been a month. We are now a little over a month into the debut of Arch City Sports, and it has been a really pleasant experience so far. You guys seem to really like the content, and I can't thank you guys enough for following all of our social media. Please, if you're listening on Spotify, rate us over there. We would love to have a 5-star there, and of course, follow on Spotify. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe over there. We would really appreciate it. The more clicks we get, the more likes, the more comments, everything. It really helps boost our page to hopefully being one of the biggest, if not the biggest, St. Louis sports podcast there is. Like I said, though, the Cardinals with another series win versus the Nationals this past weekend, winning 3 out of 4 games. And the series was kind of weird, to be honest. It didn't go exactly how we had planned. We got the job done nonetheless. Going into it, we knew we had Sonny Gray, Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson, Miles Michaelis. And if I would have told you guys, especially after Miles, he had a pretty good outing in Pittsburgh, the outing before this one. But before that, he gave up 10 runs versus the Reds. So if I were to say out of those 4 starters, Miles Michaelis had the best outing, or was going to have the best outing, you'd probably think I'm crazy for that, but he did have the best outing on Monday, going 6 1/3, no runs given up. Sonny Gray, Lance Lynn, and Kyle Gibson all gave up 4 or more runs. I think Sonny gave up 5, Lance Lynn gave up 9. His worst outing of the year, maybe of his St. Louis career. And then Kyle Gibson gave up at least 4. It might have been 5 in his start as well. He at least gave us some innings. Lance Lynn grinded out his start in game 2, giving us at least 5. Sonny Gray gave us 5. The bullpen was used a lot. Once again, that's one of the main worries I have with this squad moving forward is that bullpen usage. It's just been really, really high. And going into a quick two game series this week versus the Royals, we had a rain out on Tuesday, and I think that's a perfect, well-timed rain out to kind of get everybody a rest, because we went on a pretty long road trip there with Pittsburgh and Washington last week. Winning 3 out of 4 games, there's a couple takeaways I take from this series. Nolan Gorman, and I made a video about this, him and Nolan Arenado. Those 2 guys we were very worried about. They dominated in this series. Nolan Gorman, I believe, 9 hits in this series alone. Arenado had, as far as going into game 4 of the series, it was 8 for 14. Those 2 guys really turned it on. That was really good to see. Paul Goldschmidt with his, I believe it was 13th homer of the season in game 4 of this series. And having all these guys click. Wilson Contreras had a really good series. And on top of all of that, you get Lars Nootbaar back in the lineup, and he had 1 hit in game 4. Having all of these guys back, looking at the lineup, we say it all the time. We have a lot of depth. If everybody's clicking, we're going to be really dangerous. My thing is, there is not a real weak link in this lineup. Michael Ciani, you can make a case. He had 2 hits in game 4, by the way, but he's not going to be your starting center fielder very much longer, and he has been such a good fill-in. I know he's batting .230 and his OPS is under 600, but the guy has been so good defensively that you can put him in the 9 hole and absolutely get away with it. He's made some things happen as well offensively. I'm not going to say he's been a great addition to our lineup, but he's also not hurt us as much as his numbers would show you. But looking at our lineup, this is the first time we've had this lineup all year long. It was Mason Wynn, Alec Burleson, Wilson Contreras, Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, Brendan Donovan, Lars Nootbaar, Nolan Gorman in the 8 hole, and then Michael Ciani in the 9 hole. Those top 1 through 8, I know I have my thoughts and my opinions on Nolan Gorman. With how he's hitting right now, I have no complaints whatsoever. Then you add Tommy Edman in that 9 hole for Michael Ciani, and by no means do I believe Michael Ciani should be sent down. This guy has deserved a spot at the major league level, and he is a perfect defensive replacement late in games for Alec Burleson, or really just Alec Burleson, because Tommy and Brendan Donovan are elite in the outfield. But you had Tommy Edman in that 9 hole, and just top to bottom, I mean, I know there's a lot of swing and miss with Paul Goldschmidt this year, and definitely a lot of swing and miss with Nolan Gorman. And Arenado's had his ups and downs, but if these guys can all click in this lineup, in my opinion, it may not be the middle of the order, the best 2 or 3 hitters like LA has with Otani and when Mookie Betts is healthy and Freddie Freeman, um, and obviously not the Aaron Judge, Juan Soto star power. But 1 through 9, I cannot think of another lineup, especially with the Braves having Acuna out right now for the rest of the year. That 1 through 9, when healthy, you add Tommy Edman in the mix. It is, in my opinion, the deepest, and you can make a case, the best lineup in all of baseball when it just comes to depth. Now, like I said, we don't have the star power. I wish Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado were having amazing seasons. That would change everything, and they still have time to change that. We are now 6 games over 500 for the first time this year, for the first time in over 2 years. This team is clicking. You can feel a sense of momentum building with this squad, which is really nice to see. Flipping it all the way back around to what I was saying, Miles Mikolas, 6 1/3, no runs, his 7th win of the season. Like I was saying, though, Sonny Gray giving up a lot of runs there. For us to still win 3 out of 4 games in this series is a really positive sign. The bullpen was great. John King, Ryan Fernandez, Chris Roycroft, those guys have been superb all year long. Ryan Helsley, obviously, Jojo Romero. That is a top 5 bullpen in all of baseball. It's been the MVP. It's the top 7 players, 8 players in the bullpen have been our MVPs all year long. They have been so beneficial for us. Like I said, if we can just kind of limit that usage, need some innings from Sonny Gray, need some innings from Kyle Gibson, need some innings from Lance Lynn, Mikolas, hopefully Palante, because Palante's been great recently. Hopefully he can keep it going. If our 5 starters right there, and we might go out and get an arm at the deadline, that's a couple weeks away, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that on Friday and moving forward next week. If we can get innings out of our starting pitching and keep our bullpen healthy the second half of the season, going into potentially the postseason, that bullpen can win you postseason games. That bullpen can win you playoff games. It's that good of a bullpen. It reminds me of that Kansas City Royals bullpen back in 2015 with Holland and those guys that they had at the time. But yeah, best lineup of the season with Tommy Edman starting his rehab assignment a couple nights ago. He went 1 for 3 with an RBI single. That was really promising to see, and he's another addition. He's not a star, but he's a glue guy that makes everybody better around him. Defensive star in the outfield or at second or at short, wherever you put him. Scrappy leadoff or 9-hole hitter. You can really place him anywhere in the lineup. His power has developed over the last couple of years. Tommy Edman's going to make a difference in this lineup. And you have 2 scrappy guys like Brendan Donovan and Tommy Edman. Mason Wynn has been, rookie of the year candidate all year. Alec Burleson has blossomed. Can Goldie and Arenado have a really outstanding second half of the season? And really, if they do that, this team is a force to be reckoned with. It really is, especially if our starting pitching continues to produce. Ryan Helsley is a National League All-Star for the second time. Our lone All-Star. I want to say I'm kind of surprised, but at the same time, you look at throughout our bullpen and our starting rotation in our lineup, and I don't know what other All-Star. You could make a far-stretched case for Alec Burleson, and as much as I love the guy, I don't think he deserves it with all the star power in the outfield. The one guy that I think might find his way into the All-Star game is Sonny Gray. Like I said, he didn't have a great start in Washington, but as every year goes, there's going to be guys that drop out due to injuries or some just flat out don't want to play, or also they pitched the game right before the All-Star break, and so their manager won't let them, that type of situation. With that being said, I think Sonny Gray will find his way into the All-Star game. I think he's had that good of a year. His ERA has gone up to the mid threes now, 330, I believe. But he's been good enough. He's one win away from 10 wins. I find it hard to believe if he's not in there, just because I know there's going to be quite a few guys that drop out. Moving on this week, though, we are, like I said, 48-42 on the season. We have the Kansas City Royals in town for a 2-game series. We are at home all this week, which is really nice after that long road trip. We have the Royals in town for 2, like I said, and then we have the Cubs in town for 4. Friday, doubleheader on Saturday and on Sunday. With the Royals, they were destroying everybody, and it was like the biggest shock of the season. They have fallen off since then. They are now 49-43, 1 game ahead of us, actually. Going into the season, I would not even remotely thought that was going to be close. The Royals did not have high expectations. They have a absolute superstar in Bobby Witt Jr., and Salvador Perez is still producing at a super high level all-star catcher. They actually have 4 all-stars. You have those 2 guys. You have Cole Reagans and Seth Lugo all making the all-star game for the Royals. 4 all-stars for the Royals. That is absolutely crazy. But good for them. It's not going to be an easy series at all. We have Andre Palante and Sonny Gray going. They have Michael Walker actually going, I believe, in game 2 of that doubleheader on Wednesday. That first game of the doubleheader, I believe, is at noon, and then that second game at 6:45. I would love to split it, at least win one of these 2, and then have a Cubs team that has really been struggling come in for 4 games. We could really blossom and really get this 6 games over 500 and really make that more of a 9 or 10 games over 500, which would be really, really nice going into the All-Star break, which is actually Sunday's our last game before the All-Star break. So let's finish strong here. We have 6 games. If we can go 4-2 out of these next 6, we would put ourselves in a very, very good spot going into the All-Star break. Getting some rest. Tommy Edman should be back at the end of the All-Star break. I believe that's the plan with him. I wouldn't see a reason to push him to play against Chicago this weekend when you could just let him get some reps down there and then find his way back up. But positive vibes right now for the St. Louis Cardinals. Very positive. I feel like overall our fan base has been really positive in our comments, at least. I've seen a lot of positivity, which is really good to see, especially after a couple years of just average and below average baseball being played. But that is going to wrap it up for the Cardinals and Royals preview. There is 2 major topics that we are going to be covering on Friday's episode, this episode being a little shorter. Friday, we are going to be covering the Cardinals-Royals reaction to that series, a little recap of that, just like we did the Nationals today. Along with that, we are going to be looking ahead at the Cubs series. And then also, one of the biggest days of the season for the St. Louis Cardinals is Sunday. For the first time in my lifetime, we have a top 10 pick in the draft. So I have not covered enough of that yet. We're going to be going over my personal top 3 draft prospects that I want us to draft with the 7th overall pick in this Sunday's draft. So make sure to tune in on Friday. Of course, follow and rate on Spotify, like and subscribe on YouTube. Continue to support the podcast by liking and following on TikTok and on Instagram. And I will see you guys Friday for a very exciting episode breaking down the MLB draft where the Cardinals draft 7th overall. See you guys then.